Do you believe that the Bible, the sacred book we're all familiar with, hides creatures far beyond humanity's wildest imagination? Giant monsters rising from the abyss, multi-headed dragons dominating the skies, or hybrid beings, half human, half beast, with supernatural powers? Are these just ancient legends, misunderstood myths, or chilling evidence of a lost world, an era where the extraordinary was once reality? Today, we're diving deep into the pages of the Bible to unveil the strangest creatures within, beings that defy all logic and force you to question everything you thought you knew. Let's explore. When the Bible reveals extraordinary beings. Greetings to all curious minds and seekers of discovery. I'm the Lost Library Zenion, and today, we won't just be reading the Bible as a typical religious or historical text. We're going to explore a less discussed, yet incredibly fascinating and mysterious aspect, the world of strange creatures described right within this sacred text itself. From childhood, we're often told stories of the Garden of Eden, Noah's Ark, or David and Goliath. But few of us notice that, hidden within prophecies, poems, or historical books, the Bible paints portraits of entities that modern science struggles to explain, creatures that seem to belong only in mythology. These aren't docile sheep or familiar doves, they are beings that might make you shiver or simply marvel at the Creator's grandeur. Our goal today isn't to provide a definitive answer or to impose any single interpretation. Instead, we'll approach these mysteries with an open mind, encouraging multifaceted contemplation and asking questions. Because, sometimes, it's precisely in the unanswered questions that we find the deepest truths about the universe and ourselves. Were these creatures once real and now forgotten, or are they powerful symbols of a deeper spiritual reality? Or are they something else entirely? Join me as we begin this journey to unveil the most wondrous and unbelievable things the Bible has held captive. And to kick off this journey, we'll start with two of the most majestic creatures, two monsters mentioned as symbols of untamed natural power and chaos. Come with me as we dive deep into the abyss and uncover Leviathan and Behemoth, beasts that even humanity couldn't tame. Mythical beings made real in the Old Testament when monsters awaken. Close your eyes and imagine you're standing on a desolate shoreline. Suddenly, a colossal tsunami hits, and from the dark abyss, a terrifying creature rises, so vast it eclipses the sky. Or you're lost in a primordial forest, a deep thud shakes the ground, and a massive tail sweeps through trees like blades of grass. These aren't scenes from a fantasy film, these are descriptions of creatures found right in the Old Testament of the Bible. We're talking about Leviathan and Behemoth, two very real monsters in the text, challenging all our understanding of the natural world. Leviathan, the untamable sea monster. First, let's turn to Leviathan. The very name itself sends a shiver down your spine. The Bible mentions Leviathan in several places, most notably in the book of Job, chapter 41, where God describes it in astonishing detail as proof of his boundless power and humanity's insignificance. Listen to this description: who can open the doors of its face? Around its teeth is terror. Its rows of scales are its pride, shut up together as with a tight seal. Its breath sets coals ablaze, and flame pours from its mouth. Smoke streams from its nostrils as from a boiling pot over burning reeds. Its heart is as hard as rock, as hard as a lower millstone. Nothing on earth is its equal, a creature without fear. Job 41 verses 14 to 33, summarized. Astonishing, isn't it? A creature with impenetrable scales like armor, breathing fire and smoke, incapable of being captured or subdued by any human weapon or hunting tool. Psalm 74 verse 14 even speaks of God breaking the heads of Leviathan, suggesting it might have had multiple heads. Psalm 104 verse 26 mentions Leviathan playing in the ocean, and Isaiah 27 verse 1 calls it the fleeing serpent, the coiled serpent that God will destroy on the last day. So, what is Leviathan? This is a question that has plagued theologians, scientists, and the curious for millennia. Could it be a sea dinosaur? Some believe Leviathan was a colossal, extinct marine reptile like a plesiosaur or a mosasaur that ancient humans might have encountered or found fossils of. The descriptions of scales, size, and ferocity fit quite well. However, the ability to breathe fire surpasses all current scientific understanding. Or is it symbolic? Many scholars believe Leviathan primarily carries symbolic meaning. In ancient Near Eastern cultures, particularly in Ugarit, there's a myth of a giant sea monster named Lotan, often depicted as a seven-headed sea serpent, an enemy of the gods. The Bible might have used this familiar imagery to convey a deeper theological message. Leviathan is a symbol of primordial chaos, of the untamable forces of nature, or even the spiritual enemy of God, Satan, whom God will ultimately defeat and subdue completely. It shows that no matter how terrifying natural forces may be, they remain under the absolute control of the Creator. If Leviathan is the lord of the sea, its land counterpart is even more fearsome. Join me as we continue our journey of discovery and confront Behemoth, a beast with bones like iron and a tail like a cedar tree. This is definitely not an animal you'd want to stumble upon during an afternoon stroll. Behemoth, the terrifying land beast of immense power. After marveling at the Leviathan of the deep, we'll turn to another equally impressive creature, described just before it in the book of Job, Behemoth. From Job 40 verses 15 to 24, we get a powerful portrait of this ruler of the land. Listen to what the Bible describes. Look at Behemoth, which I made along with you and which feeds on grass like an ox. What strength it has in its loins, what power in the muscles of its belly. Its tail sways like a cedar, the sinews of its thighs are close-knit. Its bones are tubes of bronze, its limbs like bars of iron. It ranks first among the works of God, only its maker can approach it with his sword. The hills yield it food, where all the wild beasts play. Under the lotus plants it lies, hidden in the reeds and marshes. The lotus trees conceal it in their shade, the poplars by the stream surround it. A raging river does not alarm it, it is unconcerned though the Jordan surges against its mouth. Job 40 verses 15 to 23, summarized. This description has puzzled scientists and theologians for centuries. Is it a hippopotamus or an elephant? Initially, many thought Behemoth was a hippopotamus or an elephant, as they are large, herbivorous animals that live near water. However, the description of a tail like a cedar doesn't fit the short tails of hippos or elephants. A cedar is a gigantic, tall, and straight tree. Behemoth's tail is compared to a massive, powerful tree trunk, not a small appendage. Or is it a dinosaur? And this is where the theories get even more intriguing. Many proponents of the dinosaur theory, especially a colossal sauropod like a Brachiosaurus or Diplodocus, find this description compelling. These species were extremely large, herbivorous, and most importantly, they had long, massive tails that could well be likened to a tree trunk. If ancient humans had ever seen or had knowledge of these dinosaurs, perhaps through fossils or even survivors after the flood, then the description of Behemoth becomes astonishingly plausible. Symbolic meaning, just like Leviathan, Behemoth also carries deep symbolic meaning. It represents the unparalleled power of nature and the grandeur of God's creation. It serves as a reminder that humanity, with all its intelligence and strength, remains a tiny part of a vast and majestic universe created by a superior power. Behemoth cannot be subdued by humans, only the Creator can control it. From a flesh and bone monsters like Leviathan and Behemoth, we'll now shift to an even more enigmatic realm, symbolic and apocalyptic creatures. These beings aren't just animals, they are encoded messages, symbols of powerful empires and cataclysmic events. Are you ready to decode them? Join me in the next section to explore the beasts of Daniel and Revelation, where even Satan takes the form of a multi-headed dragon. Symbolic and apocalyptic creatures, decoding prophetic enigmas. If you thought Leviathan and Behemoth were strange enough, then prepare yourselves. Because now, we're venturing into a realm far more challenging to the imagination. The creatures described in the prophetic and apocalyptic books of the Bible. These are not physical entities you can touch, they are powerful symbols, encoded messages, prophecies about empires, historical events, and even the future of the world. This is where beasts with multiple heads, horns, and fiery eyes will unveil secrets of power and destruction. The beasts in the book of Daniel, nightmares of empires. Let's open the book of Daniel, chapter 7. We'll encounter 4 colossal, grotesque beasts rising from the Great Sea, each symbolizing a different world empire. This is one of the most significant prophetic passages in the Old Testament. The first beast was like a lion with eagle's wings. Its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a human, and given the mind of a human. This is understood to symbolize the Babylonian Empire, powerful like a lion, swift in conquest like an eagle. The plucking of its wings and being given a human mind might allude to its decline and transformation under King Nebuchadnezzar. The second beast was like a bear, raised up on one of its sides, and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. This bear is interpreted as the Medo-Persian Empire. The bear symbolizes brutality, being raised up on one side indicates the dominance of the Persians, and the 3 ribs could represent its 3 major conquests. The third beast was like a leopard, with 4 birds' wings on its back and 4 heads. This leopard is understood to represent the Greek Empire under Alexander the Great. The leopard signifies the incredible speed of Alexander's conquests, and the 4 wings and 4 heads symbolize that the empire would be divided into 4 kingdoms after his death. The fourth beast, this is the most terrifying beast, dreadful, terrifying, and extremely powerful. It had large iron teeth, devouring and crushing everything, and trampling what was left underfoot. It had 10 horns, and then a small horn grew up among them, uprooting 3 of the others. This little horn had eyes like the eyes of a human and a mouth that spoke boastfully. This beast is interpreted as the Roman Empire, its unparalleled power, destructive capability, and prolonged existence. The 10 horns signify the kingdoms or kings that would emerge from this empire, and the little horn with eyes and boastful words is often explained as the Antichrist, the final tyrannical ruler who will speak arrogant words against the Most High. These beasts were not physical creatures, but powerful apocalyptic images, revealing to Daniel the history of the world and the rise and fall of superpowers, all within God's grand plan. If Daniel's beasts were symbolic of earthly power, then the next creatures we'll explore come directly from the heavens, embodying both glory and the awe of God. Join me as we open the door to the celestial realm and discover the 4-faced living creatures from the visions of Ezekiel and Revelation. The 4-faced living creatures in Ezekiel and Revelation, symbols of heavenly glory. Moving from the beasts of the earth to entities from the heavens, we turn to the awe-inspiring descriptions in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1, and later in the book of Revelation, chapter 4. These are living creatures whose very existence defies ordinary explanation. In Ezekiel's vision, he saw a great storm from the north, and within the storm, there were 4 extraordinary living creatures. Each of these creatures had 4 faces, the face of a human, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. Each creature had 4 wings, and under their wings were the hands of a human. Their legs were straight, and their feet were like those of a calf, gleaming like polished bronze. And most astonishingly, their entire bodies, backs, hands, wings, and especially the wheels beside them were full of eyes. These wheels moved with the creatures, turning without swerving, and they too were full of eyes. This description is truly breathtaking. So, who are they? Scholars often explain that these creatures are cherubim, a high rank of angels, who are guardians of God's holiness and glory. The 4 faces are believed to represent various aspects of creation. O human face represents humanity, wisdom, and intelligence. O lion face represents wild beasts, strength, and majesty. O ox face represents domesticated animals, service, and endurance. O eagle face represents birds, swiftness, and the ability to soar to great heights. O together, they symbolize the completeness of creation and the absolute service of all creatures to the Creator. The multitude of eyes signifies God's omniscience and omnipresence, as well as the angel's ability to see all things. The wheels symbolize the operation of God's plan, His flexibility, and His instantaneous movement. Interestingly, in the book of Revelation, chapter 4, the Apostle John also sees 4 similar living creatures around God's throne, though with a few minor differences. Each creature has a distinct face and 6 wings. This shows the importance and continuity of this symbolism across both the Old and New Testaments, signifying perpetual worship of God's power and majesty. We've explored symbols of earthly power and heavenly glory. But now, prepare for another symbolic creature, the ultimate adversary of all that is good. Join me as we confront the dragon in the book of Revelation, a terrifying emblem of Satan himself. The dragon in the book of Revelation, the ultimate symbol of evil. And finally, in this section, we'll confront a creature whose image has been etched into human consciousness for millennia. Not just in the Bible but in countless myths and legends, the dragon. But in the book of Revelation, this dragon isn't just a mythical beast, it's a clear and powerful symbol for ultimate evil. Revelation 12 verses 3 to 9 describes it chillingly. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its heads. Its tail swept 1/3 of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. Later, Revelation 13 verse 2 describes the first beast receiving power from this dragon. So, what does this dragon signify? Symbol of Satan, Revelation 12 verse 9 clearly identifies it. The great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. This dragon is none other than Satan, the oldest adversary of God and humanity, the one who tempted Eve in the Garden of Eden and continues to deceive the entire world. Its characteristics. O red color likely symbolizes destruction, bloodshed, and malevolent power. O 7 heads and 10 horns, often interpreted as representing Satan's vast power and control, possibly linked to worldly empires and kings who will reign under his influence. The number 7 signifies completeness of evil, while a 10 signifies fullness in number. O tail sweeping a third of the stars, symbolizes Satan leading a third of the angels in his rebellion against God. Connection to dragon myths. Dragons are common figures in myths across many cultures, Eastern dragons often positive, Western dragons usually negative. The Bible's use of the familiar dragon image to represent evil shows that it uses symbolic language to convey a powerful and easily understood message to ancient readers, confirming that Satan is the most fearsome enemy, but will ultimately be defeated by God's power. From powerful symbols to terrifying beasts, the Bible still holds many other mysteries. Let's move on to the final part of this journey to explore other enigmatic creatures and the supernatural aspects they bring. Have you ever wondered if there were talking animals or creatures that were a blend of angels and beasts? Join me as we unveil them. Other mysterious creatures and supernatural aspects. We've ventured into the world of colossal monsters and prophetic symbols. But the Bible still contains many layers of mystery where seemingly simple creatures carry supernatural powers, or even the origins of terrifying legends. Let's explore a few other notable examples of strange beings within this sacred text. The talking serpent in the Garden of Eden, the first temptation. The first story, and perhaps the one with the most profound impact on all of human history, is about the serpent in the Garden of Eden, Genesis chapter 3. This was no ordinary serpent. It had the ability to speak and deceive Eve, leading to humanity's fall. So, was this truly a species of snake capable of language, a strange creature that has since disappeared? Or was it merely a tool, a disguise? Most common interpretation, the serpent was simply a vessel that Satan, who had been cast out of heaven, used, either possessing or controlling it, to carry out his wicked agenda. This was Satan's cunning way of approaching and tempting humanity through a creature they wouldn't suspect. Significance. The appearance of the talking serpent is a powerful symbol for the origin of sin and temptation. It shows that even seemingly harmless things can become instruments of evil when exploited. This narrative lays the foundation for the battle between good and evil throughout the Bible. From a cunning deceiver, we'll now shift to a completely different symbol, a being that is both sacrifice and limitless power. Join me as we explore the Lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes, the enigmatic image of the Messiah in the book of Revelation. B. The Lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes in Revelation, symbol of the Messiah. While many other creatures in Revelation evoke fear, there is a central figure, powerful yet incredibly mysterious. The Lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes, Revelation 5 verse 6. Description: John sees a lamb as if slain, standing in the center of the throne and the living creatures, among the elders. This lamb has 7 horns and 7 eyes, and these eyes are the 7 spirits of God sent out into all the earth. Symbolic meaning. The Lamb is a powerful symbol of Jesus Christ, who willingly sacrificed himself as an atonement for humanity's sins, like an innocent lamb slain. As if slain emphasizes his crucifixion and death. 7 horns. Horns in the Bible often represent power and strength. The number 7 is the number of perfection and completeness. Therefore, 7 horns symbolize Jesus' absolute power. He possesses all authority in heaven and on earth. 7 eyes. Eyes represent knowledge and perception. 7 eyes symbolize Jesus' omniscience. He knows all things, and they are also the 7 spirits of God, the Holy Spirit, sent out into all the earth, signifying the omnipresence and activity of God's Spirit throughout the universe. This image is a powerful testament to the complexity and depth of the Bible's symbolic language, where a seemingly weak lamb carries the limitless power and omniscience of God. We've talked about fallen angels and what they created in our previous video. Now, let's revisit and expand on that concept with strange beings born from terrifying unions, and even angels tasked with guarding the most sacred places. The blurry line between spirit and matter. Returning to a hot topic from our previous video on the Book of Enoch, the Bible also alludes to strange entities born from unnatural unions. While not as detailed as Enoch, Genesis 6 verses 1 to 4 mentions the sons of God and daughters of men, giving birth to Nephilim, the giants. This opens a door to the existence of hybrid creatures, entities that crossed conventional boundaries between species, or even between heaven and earth. Are there other combined beings we don't know about? And it's not just creatures from a fallen state. The Bible also describes angels with fearsome appearances and special duties. Cherubim guarding the Garden of Eden. Immediately after Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden, Genesis 3 verse 24 states that God placed cherubim at the east of the garden, with a flaming sword flashing back and forth, to guard the way to the tree of life. These cherubim, as we saw in Ezekiel, are not the cute baby angels of Renaissance paintings. They are majestic, terrifying entities with multiple faces, multiple wings, and full of eyes, uncompromising divine guardians. Their presence transformed a lost paradise into an unapproachable place. This shows that the biblical universe doesn't just contain humans, animals, and traditional angels. It also contains strange creatures, defying classification, existing on the boundary between physical reality and the spiritual world. So, after exploring these strange creatures, how will you interpret them? As evidence of a distant past, or symbols for the future? Join me for the final section, where we'll discuss different interpretations and the lingering questions these creatures pose to us. What is the truth? We've journeyed together through the pages of the Bible, marveling at creatures beyond imagination. Now, the big question remains, how should we understand these creatures? Did they once exist literally, in flesh and blood, or are they merely powerful symbolic images carrying deeper meanings? Let's explore the main schools of thought so you can draw your own conclusions. Evidence of a lost world? Some believe that the descriptions of Leviathan, Behemoth, or even the Nephilim giants are literally true. Fossil evidence. They argue that these creatures could have been colossal, extinct animals, like dinosaurs or giant marine reptiles, that ancient humans either encountered or at least found fossils of and had a memory of them. For instance, some believe Behemoth was a type of sauropod that Noah took on the ark, or that these creatures survived the flood for a period. Supernatural powers. For characteristics like Leviathan breathing fire, they might explain it by stating that these creatures were divinely endowed with special abilities, or were genetically altered or uniquely created in an age we cannot fully comprehend. Impact. This belief offers an entirely new perspective on Earth's history, on a time when humans coexisted with gigantic beings, and deepens faith in God's miraculous creation. It also raises questions about the possibility of future archaeological or scientific discoveries. But not everyone subscribes to this literal interpretation. Many scholars argue that the true power of these descriptions lies in their deeper meanings. So, let's explore the most prevalent perspective, the symbolic and apocalyptic interpretation. Symbolic/apocalyptic interpretation, encoded messages. This is the more common and widely accepted school of thought in modern theological studies. The strange creature descriptions are considered symbolic language used to convey theological, historical, or prophetic truths that cannot be expressed in ordinary words. Allegories of power. Leviathan and Behemoth, in this view, are not specific animal species, but rather symbols of the destructive power of nature or political and spiritual forces opposing God. They are images of chaos, arrogance, and rebellion. Prophecies of empires, the beasts in Daniel and the dragon in Revelation are prime examples. They are clearly not flesh and blood animals. They are powerful symbols of worldly empires, Babylonian, Medo-Persian, Greek, Roman, of tyrannical political forces, and of Satan himself. Their multiple heads, horns, or unusual features all carry deep meaning about their power, brutality, and ultimate fate. Divine descriptions, the four-faced creatures in Ezekiel and Revelation, are believed to symbolize aspects of God's attributes, His presence, and high-ranking angels. The symbolic interpretation helps us understand that the Bible does not always speak literally. It uses powerful imagery to convey grand messages, warnings, and promises about the future. But are these images entirely unique to the Bible, or is there an overlap with other cultures? Join me as we delve deeper into the connection between the Bible and ancient mythology, a topic that might surprise you. Connection to ancient mythology, influence or origin. Some scholars go even further, questioning the connection between biblical creatures and the mythologies of neighboring civilizations. Cross-cultural influence. Did the Bible borrow imagery from popular ancient Near Eastern myths, such as the story of Lotan, the seven-headed sea serpent of Ugarit, in its description of Leviathan? Or other giant monsters in Mesopotamian mythology? This doesn't diminish the Bible's value, rather, it shows that the biblical authors used familiar imagery within contemporary culture to convey God's message in an understandable and relevant way. The Bible as origin. Conversely, some believe that the very stories within the Bible are the source of many later myths. The Great Flood, the giants, or fearsome creatures might have been passed down through generations, eventually transforming into local myths with different names. Exploring this connection helps us gain a broader perspective on how cultures interacted and shared stories about the supernatural world and extraordinary beings. It demonstrates that these mysteries aren't confined to the Bible but are part of humanity's shared cultural heritage. Our journey to explore the Bible's strange creatures is nearing its end, but the questions never cease. Now, let's reflect on all we've discovered and pose the final lingering questions. Unanswered questions, opening the doors of curiosity. Whether we interpret these creatures literally or symbolically, they leave us with many unanswered questions. Why are some creatures described so specifically, with vivid details, while others remain vague and highly allegorical? What is their true role in God's overall plan, beyond their surface meanings? Will future scientific and archaeological discoveries ever provide concrete evidence for the existence of these creatures, as undiscovered extinct species? And most importantly, will exploring these mysteries change our faith, or strengthen it in a profound way? These questions are not a sign of weakness, but an invitation for us to continue searching, to continue delving into the unknown. Conclusion: unveiling timeless mysteries. So, we've journeyed together through the pages of the Bible, unveiling the mysteries of extraordinary creatures that few dare to speak of. From the majestic monsters of land and sea like Leviathan and Behemoth, to the powerful symbols of power and destruction like Daniel's beasts and the dragon of Revelation, to deeply meaningful figures like the tempting serpent and the lamb with 7 horns and 7 eyes. Whether you choose to interpret them literally as real creatures from the past, or symbolically as encoded messages, one thing is undeniable: the Bible is not merely a book of history or doctrine. It is a gateway to the deepest mysteries of the world, of supernatural forces, and of the very history of creation. It challenges our understanding, invites us to dig deeper, and to never stop asking questions. These strange creatures are just a small part of the countless mysteries the Bible still holds. Which creature did you find the strangest from what we explored today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you crave to continue this journey of discovering the unknown, don't forget to subscribe to the Lost Library Zenion channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventures. In our upcoming video, we'll jointly unveil an even more debated mystery: the truth about the resting place of the Ark of the Covenant. Has it been found, or does it remain an eternal secret? You won't want to miss it. See you in the next video.